I wanted to ask, because I've read some interviews of you where you said you're interested in characters that have a forlornness about them and loneliness. And I think that applies to all of these characters. Was that the central kind of kernel for the idea of islands, this people that are disconnected from themselves and from each other?
Well, the movie came to me while I was on Fuerteventura, and I had an encounter with a person that lived there, and he was a tennis coach, and I was in one of these holiday apartments, and his court was right under my balcony, and I was just observing him, and at one point started to talk to him, and he fascinated me. There was something about it that got my curiosity, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So these subjects seem to find me and interest me, but it's not that I go for them like in a rational way, that I sit at home and think this is something that I want to write about. It's more that I feel drawn to these kind of characters, I guess.
You okay?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
I mean, I find all that compelling. I mean, I love films about ennui and existentialism. And I'm going to quote from the Science Sound review of the film in a bit. But when I watched the film, I always thought it was the character of Tom that was lonely. But the more I watch it, you realise how lonely everybody is. I mean, it's a film that's got humour, it's got thrills, but it's sad. So I just wondered if you could all talk about how you reacted to that element of loneliness, because you're all unhappy. I mean, I'm unhappy, but I'm paid to be unhappy.
Are you looking at me, Jason?
Well, all of you, yeah.
Yeah, the tennis was the hard part.
You looked pretty good at the end of it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're interesting. They're interesting to play these types of things. I mean, I read the script on a beach on the Ostsee in Germany, so a cold beach, and I don't know. I rarely read such a great script and such a dream character. It wasn't the fact that he was lonely or unhappy, although maybe that. I do have a habit for playing those kinds of people. I've not done many comedies yet, but it's coming. It was just I just read it and thought, I know this guy, I can play this.
And Stacy and Jack, because as I said, you're both. I mean, you're in a marriage. It's one of the unhappiest portraits of a marriage I've ever seen. It's not my marriage.
This is so joyful.
Yeah.
I don't know, for me it was more that it's a moment in time where each character has so many questions of the past, but also what their future could be, and I think it was what appealed to me the most as an actor is just also giving in to the uncertainty. And I think especially with Anne, because her character also follows this line of the film, and you don't know whether or not she's done it, or you don't really know what she's thinking. I loved having the opportunity to just go, well, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing in my life. So let's explore that and figure it out with her.
And Jack, for yourself, I mean, you have, I think, in some ways the hardest role, because I don't know how to put this tactfully. You play someone quite repellent.
Thanks very much.
There isn't that much likeable about the character of Dave, is there?
No, and he felt very familiar. He really, weirdly though, he really did. I think I relate to a lot more of Dave than maybe I should admit, and I'm sure we all do as well. He's like he felt so clear on the page. As he's very much one thing pretending to be something else. He's so vulnerable because of that. But the loneliness, obviously, they're in a relationship that's like lost its communication, so they're now kind of talking through this man they don't know. In that weird scene on the balcony where they're trying to have a conversation with each other through him that obviously fails and turns into a row. But I don't know, I really kind of, I felt like I knew him, or I had parts of me that connected to him. And yeah, he's a very difficult, kind of useless pain in the arse, but there's something very beautiful and profound about him that feels so familiar. I've met so many people who, like, you know, make the noises he makes. So many. And so it was like, he felt very quick to find a way to.
And it's interesting because there's a sense that the characters go on a journey, and you think Dave's gone through this terribly traumatic incident where he tries to swim to Lanzarote, and then at the end, his response is to give people money. I mean, again, he picks Tom up and gives him money as if that kind of makes it. Okay, you get the sense he hasn't really learned anything.
I know, and I always thought, I don't know if maybe Jan-Ole doesn't agree with me, but I always kind of thought that he was giving Tom money, that he doesn't really have that money, but he's giving it to him because he wants to give someone some money, you know, to be like, it's cool, we've got this, I'm going home now. I love that weird scene at the end, and I love the weird thing that we ended up with it, where it's almost like there's this sort of like scabbed, weird man who's just recovered from this 48 hours of insanity, and he's sort of like laughing and giving this guy money, going like, we had a great time, didn't we? It's so peculiar, and yet I totally understood what was going on there.
To be honest, I was hoping that he's not only appear as what would you call it, a terrible man or an asshole. I was like hoping that there's also, coming a bit of his desperation through. Like he's a struggling man, and I think under this childish surface, there's a lot of struggling going on.
And there's also the revelation he has to deal with, the fact that Anton might not be his son. There's other themes in the film I want to return to. But you mentioned Fuerteventura, and it's interesting, I've just come back from Fuerteventura, which is probably another reason why I like the film. And this film is a film filled with so many great characters, all of your characters, but I also think the supporting characters, Maria, the hotel receptionist, is brilliant. The inspector, who's been watching too much Columbo, that's a great line. But there's another character in the film, which is the island, because it's I don't know, how many of you have ever been to Fuerteventura on the Canary Islands? Okay, because it is like an ancient island, but then it has these shallow tourist traps. It's a strange dichotomy of places. So I wanted to ask about that. I mean, you said it there, but I also wanted to ask about filming there, because I understand that you filmed in a real resort while people were staying on holiday there. I mean, it sounds a bit like White Lotus, but what was that like?
Not as
It was.
expensive as White Lotus.
Right, yeah, a bit lower key. Yeah. You're lucky it wasn't Canby Island. That would be...
Butlins, White Lotus.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I've been to the island before, and I started to feel the urge to go back and shoot a movie there. And during COVID, I finally had the time to write that story, and I remembered all the places that I've been to, and more or less wrote the first draft only with real locations in mind. I didn't make up any caves. I've been to that caves, and I thought it would be nice to have this and that scene and this and that location. And I was, for obvious reasons, fascinated with that hotel in the middle of the dune, because it looks like both a Fata Morgana, but also like an Alcatraz in the desert. From a cinematic point of view, a very interesting location, but I was not very confident that we would get permission to shoot there, because I shot 2 films in Berlin before, and it got terribly complicated to get permission for anything there. And I was prepared for the worst, but there was some person in the management of the hotel group in Madrid who was a huge fan of cinema, unlike the manager on location, who hated the fact to host us. He literally made us feel his hate. And but we had the permission, and we started to arrange our shooting schedule around busy times at the reception, busy times in the breakfast hall. It was like playing Tetris, more or less. Okay, they come and have breakfast, then they go to the pool again, so we have a 2-hour slot to shoot that scene, then we have to go back because then they come for lunch. But it worked out quite well, and at one point, I think, like in the beginning, people who stayed there for holidays were a bit irritated, because I don't think you pay a lot of money to go to some hotel, so some German assistant director yells, "Quiet, please," to you while you're having fun. But I think it became like an extra feature for them, watching us at work while they were by the pool having a beer, and we like try to get the scene done. And I think you were even confused for a real tennis coach, and people try to hire you for lessons. Yeah, no, it became one.
When we were shooting that scene with water aerobics,
They joined in.
someone came in and said, "Oh, it's great that they're doing this, isn't it?" And people they didn't realise. For me, it was like almost like the Truman Show, because we had there was a bar that wasn't used anymore. That was the costume, hair and makeup. So I'd come out with my gear on and walk past everyone at the pool to go to the tennis courts. It was just, it was immersive.
Did it help in terms of your character? I mean, there is also in this idea the theme of paradise not being what it's made out to be. And after 3 days on Fuerteventura, I'd have enough. So, for a long shoot...
It's a beautiful island.
It's a beautiful, but it's the other parts of it, the clubs, like the Waikiki Club. But for you, did it enable you to did it help you get into your roles? The fact that you were in this kind of pressurised situation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. You didn't have to, it was all, it sounds obvious, but it was all there. The heat was quite intense, and being out when we shot the tennis scenes, you had an idea of what that must be like, doing 8-9 hours in the beating sun, just hitting balls back and forth. And the locations, it was, yeah, absolutely, it was, the island was a character, and the crew and everything. We were shooting in this one hotel, but we were all living in another less glamorous hotel.
Less glamorous?
Las Marismas.
Right.
Where all the crew and the actors and we were all living there. Our families came to stay. And usually everyone goes off at the end of the day to their different places, but we were all together for the full 6 weeks. It was really, intense but fantastic like that.
You get the sense that between you there's a real, seeing you all in Edinburgh, sadly you could maybe you sense that there's a real camaraderie, which is, you obviously enjoy talking about this film and promoting it. I also wanted to ask, there is this motif in the film, again, the more you watch it, of Tom waking up, and it's like, it starts with that, there's like 7 or 8 waking up sequences. And I read something interesting you said, Jan, you said about you were interested in, I don't want to intellectualise, you're interested in Chekhov, and the idea of people that want to change, but they don't quite have that ability. And in the film with the waking up sequences, there are these various moments where you kind of think, okay, this is going to be the day where he changes, and then he gets drunk again. And I'm not convinced by the ending, which is a great open ending. It's just kind of Billy Liar moment, whether he's going to go anywhere or not. But I wondered if you could talk about that kind of having to constantly wake up, usually appearing drunk, usually in the desert.
Well, I don't know how to answer this without it becoming too much of a share or something.
If you're happy, I'm sure the audience.
No, I'd rather, I won't go into it, but I don't even know what to say. I know how that is somehow.
Right. Okay.
No, I'm retired.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
But it's very much like that, and it's what was really appealing, or one aspect of it. All these missed opportunities. Every day is a new opportunity to do it differently, but it's incredibly difficult to not do it. It seems, and he's always being told that this is what a life, how amazing, This being called ace all the time, which in one side is a compliment, on the other side it's a permanent reminder of his former glory, or even if it's true or not. And it just goes round and round and round in this vicious circle. And he has this opportunity when this family arrive, and the two men seem to sort of want or envy something that the other has. This life of freedom, no child, no wife. He's thinking, what would it be like with a wife and child, financial stability, which is the sort of the essence of unhappiness, isn't it? Sort of not being good with what you've got. But they're all suffering that. And I think it's a very common plight. And I think so many of us don't have the courage to ask each other things that we should ask each other or ourselves. and so much goes unsaid. And then you wonder, you know, what if, you know, maybe I should have done this, should I have done that? I think it's a universal thing.
There's that moment I really like with Tom and Anne in the restaurant where she's drinking the martinis, and she goes from being a character who's quite pleasant and obviously has affection for Tom to being someone who's quite scathing and undercutting. You know, why do you live here? And you say, I like it here, but you say it in such a way that you don't ever really believe you. Can you say more about that scene? And also, Stacy, about because you're the thing you kind of introduce, there's almost like a femme fatale element to your character, which I really like. And people have written about this as a thriller. I won't quote from Sight and Sound, but you know, they talk about the fact that you set it up as a thriller, and that's there if you want it. If you don't want it, there's the family drama. But that moment is just so interesting, where the dynamic seems to change between you. And that lies also with you scratching the car. I mean, your character is quite deep. She's also, I mean, I don't offend all of you here on stage tonight, but she's also not particularly nice, is she?
I think she's quite lovely. No, I think it was a really fun opportunity to also delve into. I'm such a people pleaser in life that actually going against that and playing a character that just suddenly has an instinct and does it is quite exciting. But that specific scene, there were so many ways that it could have gone, and I remember just going, well, why don't we try different versions? And then hopefully somehow in the edit something very peculiar will happen. And it was a moment where you almost have a moment of lucidity, but it's sort of, she's having it with the wrong person, and she should really be having it with herself, but things are so far down the line now that there's just no going back. And I loved doing that scene, and I think I threw many olives into the sea, and like we went all different ways, and it was really fun. So just to see the fear in the props department because they were running out of things that I could throw away was pretty fun.
And also, Jan, I mean, I again, in an interview I read, I want to talk about the technical, because I know that you compose some of the music as well, or one piece of music, and I think it's a very,
Yes.
it's a technically accomplished film, because you capture the beauty of the island, but you also capture the other elements, which I think is interesting. But you've spoken about how the element of loneliness, you're influenced not necessarily in the look of the film, but as an inspiration, the paintings of Edward Hopper. You said that you liked the kind of loneliness you captured in the Nighthawks of the Diner type.
He came to my mind when I saw the frame of the 3 or 4 of them standing on that deserted beach. That actually that one.
Yeah.
And that in regards of the title, which is also to me referring to them being together but separated from each other, like isolated. That, I don't know, brought Edward Hopper to my mind. I almost said Dennis Hopper, but I mean
He's also good.
yeah, he's also good. Edward Hopper. But he wasn't. I like his paintings a lot. I like how he captures urban loneliness and all these things. But no, he only came to my mind when we were shooting that scene. Actually, I don't know. Have I mentioned it somewhere?
Yeah. I mean, I've done so much research, hours and hours.
Great.
But also, I mean, were there film influences? I mean, again, I'm sorry, Sight and Sound, you give it a very good review. Talk about Antonioni, and I was certainly reminded of The Passenger, which I think is probably the greatest film about an existential crisis. But were there films that you all kind of looked at? Did you discuss films? Did you? Because as I said, I do really like the film, and I just find myself every time I watch it, I kind of think, oh, it's a thriller. Oh no, it's not. It's an existential drama, and that's what I like about it. I mean, even the thing about maybe Tom's the father, but he might not be. I mean, you just sort of leave it there for the audience. I think you give your audience a lot of credit by allowing them. We'll find out in the next time. I'm going to ask them to ask some questions. You let them find their way into the film. Is what I think is so admirable about Islands. But did you kind of look at any references? Were there any other?
Well, I at the beginning I thought I'm dealing with a rock solid drama about a washed up character, classic anti-hero, and I don't know. But the more I allowed myself to also let like the elements that the island and the holiday world had to offer on other genre elements mixed in, like into the original idea of it. And I think it had to do with, and I think this is why it took me so long, because I really, this encounter with the real guy is like really many years ago, but I had the idea, or like the wish to shoot a film on the island, and I had a character in mind, but not really a story. And when I sat down to finally think of something that could turn the whole thing into a script, I thought of something that would be the complete opposite of his lifestyle. And I think from that direction comes the idea of confronting him with the family and with the opportunity to...
There's a phone call for you.
Is it for me?
No.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, there is. I do love the moment because.
I
Yes,
just want to finish that. Sorry, but I think just to answer your question, I think then it turned more and more into a noir, because once there was a family, it was quite obvious that the husband needed to disappear at one point so he could replace him. And like you said, there was the idea to give her, like Anne, a little bit of a femme fatale vibe, even though I have a bit of a problem with reducing her to that stereotype of a woman that has like some criminal energy and secret agenda, because it was more interesting and important to me that she remains an enigma and mysterious to a certain degree, but also has a very what's the word, like a real conflict to deal with, being trapped in this rather horrible marriage, feeling responsible for her child, but then again, longing for a different life. And with all these ideas, I think it turned more and more on the surface into a noir. But to me, it's like a little bit of both, and I think this is what made the writing process sometimes a little bit tricky, because it was, on the surface, it was like a plot-driven thriller / noir, and underneath it was like more a character-driven kind of thing. And finding the right balance between these two story approaches was sometimes tricky.
But you also give your moments. I mean, even amongst all the unhappiness, you provide these moments of joy. I love the sequence of the camel farm, and I also like the two actors and the characters that play the camel farm owners. And they're probably the only really happy people in the film, aren't they? I mean, they're the ones that... But then, of course, the camel doesn't end well for the camel. So we can talk about it now without spoiling it. But they do all experience these moments of collective happiness, don't they? For quite a brief moment. But there's these moments where they're sharing in something, and it feels, oh, this is going to be good. And then what goes wrong?
It's life.
Yeah. It's life.
Sorry, no, I'm only being vaguely flippant.
No, you could be flippant. But you also have your kind of moment of with the tennis sequence where you do the serving with the tourists. I mean, and the music there is great, because you do get a sense of, was he ever one of the greats? You seem pretty... There's a lot of good films with tennis sequences at the moment. Has anyone seen The Ballad of Wallace Island?
Yeah. Yeah,
that's got a good tennis sequence in it. You should have a game with Tim Keys, 'cause he's pretty good. But that's a lovely moment as well, isn't it? Because you
There's
show...
great surf in that film, right?
Yeah.
He's only surfing because...
He's only surfing.
Yeah.
So that's like, I mean, could it splice the two films
Yeah.
together? But I mean, that's a moment where, and the music suggests that there's still greatness.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite pieces of music in the film, because the music tells you it's a heroic moment, but it's actually the complete opposite. I think it's referring to some former glory, but then again, there's nothing left of it, and the paradise turns into hell in that moment to me, like when they make him drink and say his name, Ace. I think it's one of the most tragic moments for that character in the whole film. But yeah, it's a great piece of music. You just said that I composed a piece of music, and maybe I have to clear that up, because we had like a great film composer. Her name is Dascha Dauenhauer, and she composed this score, which was not an easy thing to do for her, because she came into the process very late in the editing, and I used a lot of great pieces of music from the history of cinema. There was like great temp music, and composers hate that, and usually directors also have a problem to let go of the temps because they worked with them for such a long time. But I think she overcame all my. She topped all my expectations about the music, but there was this one piece of music which indeed turned out to be a problem, and that is the club track. Because the club track, when we shot the scene, we used some really popular dance floor hit, which we couldn't afford in the end because it was like terribly expensive. I think they wanted to charge like 250,000 euros just for the rights of the track. That's how popular it was. So I ended up with a friend, recording that track. And it's my vocals, actually. I was like expecting it to become a #1 hit after the release of the film, but nobody really cares about the film. You're the first one who's like...
I didn't know that.
I've done the research. Let's take some questions from the audience. I am going to read this quote quickly from Sight and Sound. The new Sight and Sound is out, the international film magazine, so I just really like this. It's a bold move to build an entire film around an unspoken suspicion while staving off Antonioni ennui. But Gerster pulls it off, keeping us guessing about nefarious off-screen motivations while painting a sly character study set against the elemental backdrop of Fortaventura. It's a pretty good review, isn't it?
Nice.
I mean, it's glowing about all the performances. Yeah, pretty.
I don't mind like reading Antonioni as a name, in regards of the film, but it's not that
No, it's not really.
No, but you sat down in that car and put on your glasses and you sat.
I'm Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson in the passenger. Yeah, no.
I love that. I mean, it made me think of those films when I read it, or the bit of Ripley, or there was the other Antonio where someone goes missing on an island.
L'Avventura.
Yeah, L'Avventura. Yeah.
It was kind of fixed in my mind that it would be an anticlimactic end and everybody had to go back to their normal life, right? Like a holiday, it's only for a couple of days and at one point it ends and everybody has to go back. So Anne and Dave go back to wherever they came from and you go back to the cage training tennis. So it never came to my mind to write something that is a big thriller finale where it has like 3 amazing plot twists in regards of what happened to Dave. I was always in love with the scene where he just shows up again, like with bruises and he's like in tears, I'm so sorry, because he's been on this terrible bender and now he's crawling back like some men do. And so that was always like the way I wanted to end the film. But getting there was a bit of a problem. And like I said, it was at the beginning it was just a character drama, and then it was a bit difficult to give the scenes with Anne the ambiguity they needed. So it always could have been this or the other way. Like, has she been to the island? Is it just something he puts together in his head? Because the projection and the fact that she's not confronting him, that he has to really be the one who dares to ask or makes a move. So that was a bit difficult sometimes. Maybe this is a good opportunity to mention Laurie, who co-wrote the script. Where is he?
Or is he here?
Yeah, Laurie Duran. Where is he? Now this is like I started to write this script, like I came with the idea and I started to work on the script with the writer of my previous film, and we met each other in a script lab called the Torino Script Lab, and that's where we also met Laurie. And Blaž and I, we both speak very poor English, and we also write in very poor English. So we were just looking for somebody to polish the language for us. And then there was Laurie with all this great feedback and ideas of how to solve the crime part of the film. So he became our third writer and fixed all the noir elements that weren't really working. Thanks, Laurie, for fixing it. Well, I think moments like this or ideas like this are best when they work in both directions. They can be a symbol for something, but they can also just be seen for like what they are really. And I mean, there's obviously more to this camel, which is like a foreshadowing what could happen to the main character. At least I looked at it like this, like a warning, right? And I don't know how it ended up as a scene in the film. I think it was also like that I was thinking about all the memories I had with Forteventura, and I think the camel farmers were first because I wanted him to have at least like this one couple, like real people, real friends, and they leave him to be with their real family because they're not the island isn't their home, and they know it, and they have to go back to Morocco. And I think once the camel farmers made their way into the film, also the camel sneaked its way into the script. It is definitely some moment in the film, like around that time, where he starts to shift from like being all drunk and confused and tired to somebody who's clearing up more and more. I think he's not having a drink.
He's buying the Cocoa Pops as
He's
well.
buying the Cocoa Pops. And I don't think we never see him drink again till the very end, when he's like serving in the middle of the night with these punks. So it is a shift moment for the character in the film. I never thought about it like this, but you're right, probably.
So you come here and you learn something. That's what we love about
That's
the
that's
BFI, right?
what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Sorry?
I loved it. I think we all come from somewhere, and we all have an identity and family, but there's also a sense of we're always searching for our ultimate version. And I think when you're on holiday, you have a respite, and you have all these hopes that you're going to read all these books, that you're going to come back refreshed and relaxed, and you're going to come back into the world as a new person. And that sort of thought of regenerating yourself is such a strange concept, and that it comes also from like all the other persons that you could have been if you had made a choice, like if they didn't have a child, or what if they didn't stay together, what could have happened. And I think a holiday is a sort of pause in each character's psyche, or even, you know, if you go on holiday, and it's that otherness of your own life that sort of happens on it. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it's sort of the otherness doesn't mean external, it can also be internal. And so for me, the film has that element as well.
Thank you.
Anyone want to add?
I agree 100%, but I even had these thoughts when I was in the hospital, because every moment that takes you out, I think of your everyday life, or you're like stuck in your modus operandi, you know, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you know, getting out of this loop allows you to reflect about what's also possible, what other ways you could have gone, or like what's there to change in your life. And even though he's living in a resort like this, and he obviously ran away from something himself, he seemed to be stuck in a loop like this. For him, the holiday is, you know, being with the family. You know, I like when like one of my favorite moments is when Maria says she just doesn't want to lie for him anymore. What am I supposed to tell management? And he says, tell them I've gone on holiday. And yeah.
I think there's a backstory there. I said this to you, Sam, when we were in Edinburgh, between Tom and the Maria character. There's obviously an affection there. You get the sense that they've had a moment. She's very good acting.
I don't know if she's fantastic. I don't know if it's that, or whether it's somebody that really likes him, and that it could be, it's a potential for a relationship with, you know, connection and feelings, and he either can't see it, or but it's another missed opportunity. Say that
She's
again.
happily married to somebody else.
The receptionist.
Yeah.
She might be.
This is taken.
Yeah, why
so
not?
she?
The receptionist,
Yeah.
no, I think she has a crush on him. And I think the idea of her...
Did you see a wedding
She
ring?
could still be married and have a crush on.
Oh yeah, that's true, sorry. But I think the idea was really to put something really good in front of him, something that would be good for him, like somebody who's like caring about him. She says like, you have to go to bed early, you know, take care of yourself. And
It's right in front of him.
He's right in front of him. He's unable to see, because the movie's also, I think, a little bit about like the grass is always greener on the other side, and the decision for a certain lifestyle is also always a decision against something else, right? And we start to reflect about these things when we're stuck in the decisions that we made, and you know, we like to compare ourselves, and comparing is, as we say in Germany, the end of happiness.
Yeah.
You could film that as well, The End of Happiness. That's another good title.
Not so much, to be honest. It's not that we like ended up making a completely different film, and the script development also was something that moved forward in a way that always felt like right. It's almost too good to be true, but writing the script, I mean, there were some challenges and difficulties to deal with, but from the very beginning, once we had the setup of the characters, the story started to offer a lot, also in regards of the place and the metaphorical quality of the place and the holiday world. And we even had to stop ourselves at one point not to milk every metaphor there is, from volcanoes to camels, from camels to I don't know what. But no, it felt very rich from the beginning, and I have to say, like, because of reasons we mentioned, like shooting in a hotel where people actually are on holiday, was a bit of a terrifying thought, but it all worked out so in such a wonderful way. I think we, as a team, like we said before, we stayed in this one hotel, and I think for many of us it was like a really good experience, I guess. It's not the worst place to shoot a film, I have to say. There are, like, I think, more terrible places to go to and make a film, but no, there weren't any surprises that way. I mean, like, good surprises in the way that things became even greater than I thought they would be. Like, we worked with this fantastic cinematographer who contributed so much to the aesthetic of the film by his choreography of setting up a scene. So he encouraged me to, you know, not go for coverage, even though it's sometimes, you know, the securer, less risky way for a director, because it gives you more opportunity to influence the rhythm of the film later on in editing. But I promised myself to be brave and courageous, and it all worked out perfectly. Also because I was, you know, every day amazed by the performance of the three, and you know, when I look at the film, some of the scenes that were shot in one take have a better rhythm than the ones we edited, right? And it's difficult sometimes to trust your sense of time when you're under the pressure of filming, and you usually want to do a second shot in order to be able to influence the rhythm of the scene or shorten it. And then you're in editing, and your sense of time is different than, again, like watching it with 800 people. But this is something I really take away, besides like working with Stacy, Sam, and Jack, is like how we shot the film, and what like Juan as a cinematographer, but also Dascha as a film composer contributed to the film.
Maybe you can all go on holiday again next year. As you had
I miss
do
Fuerte
another
a little
film.
bit. Yeah, no, I miss it a little bit. Yeah, I might be going.
Right. We are going to draw to a close. I'm going to do a few thank yous. So Islands is released by BFI Distribution on Friday. It's in 27 cinemas. Thanks to our great distribution team, led by Stuart Rod and Julie Pearce, who's in Toronto. So thank you to them
Thank
for
you.
doing such a great job getting things done. Thank you to our wonderful BSL interpreters.
Thank you.
Our projection team. The magic doesn't happen without the projection team. Sorry, it's getting tiresome, isn't it? The events team, who always do a brilliant job on the events here. And I also want to give a shout out to Laura Santos, who's sitting in the front, who's our brilliant acquisitions person who just discovered the film in Berlin. And without her, we would not have had this film on our rostrum.
Thank you.
So as I said, film's out on Friday. It's on BFI Player, the only streaming service you need in your lives, later in September. And it arranges a huge, huge thank you to Jan, Sam, Stacy and Jack for joining us.
Thank you.